If you do not show up, there will be an arrest, Mershon says. Donald Trump doesn't have a choice here.
It's more diminishing for the president to be seen in a courtroom than to be rallying outside one.
The candidate for president could be doing something else today besides dozing off in a courtroom.
The split screen will be Donald Trump in a courtroom, Joe Biden on a campaign trail. So I think that's a very important juxtaposition.
I think the impact of these trials is going to be the same impact from the indictments. People are going to look at this. They're going to say, why are the Democrats and Joe Biden and these crazy DAs wasting our time with these stupid trials? Why are the media networks fawning over this coverage left and right while the country is a mess, inflation is skyrocketed, and the world is on fire? Joe Biden is the one who is the master of disaster. Joe Biden is the one who has led America to its weakest point in more than 40 years. And for you guys to want to focus on Donald Trump as if he's the problem, that is ridiculous, because when he was president, America was significantly better off. It's going to backfire this November.
All right, guys, so with woke Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's fraudulent Stormy Daniels hush money trial beginning, a lot of people are wondering what is the effect going to be on Trump, because we're in untested waters in the sense that before we knew that the indictments against Trump definitely help him. All of the attacks from the mainstream liberal media help Trump. Trump has been Teflon up until this point. In fact, if you look at this chart, you can see that once the indictments actually began against Trump, okay, and they really started to come after him, his poll numbers really just started to shoot up. And recently, Trump has been kind of running away from Biden, and now things have kind of tightened up, okay? I think that Trump is going to break out and take another lead on Biden. I think that, you got to understand these polls kind of shift back and forth. But at the very least, it seems like the general trend is that Trump is at some point going to establish an outright lead over Joe Biden that will be insurmountable, in my opinion, okay? And I'm going to tell you guys exactly why I think that, okay? I think that Trump is probably going to break out here pretty soon, and things are going to explode for him when it comes to polling in a good way because of the trials starting, okay? Because, again, the idea is that, well, all the other stuff in the past didn't work against Trump because it's not real, in the sense that an indictment or a charge is not guilt, right? You can't say that Trump is actually guilty of anything, okay? However, if there's a conviction, okay, which we'll see what happens with this Stormy Daniels trial, if there's a conviction, then at that point, people will say, well, Trump is actually really a criminal. He's convicted. Therefore, we won't vote for him, okay? This is what the theory is, and this is why you have networks like MSNBC essentially begging the justice system to convict Trump so that they can see what happens, because they really, really, really want to see Trump behind bars. Be damned what the data has suggested thus far, which is none of this stuff actually really works, and that it is destined to backfire on them.
Watching this from afar, if you saw Donald Trump behind bars, cuffed or, frog walked out of that courtroom, I mean, his numbers would go sky high. His fundraising would go off the charts. Does he have an unlimited amount of people willing to put money into his pocket to pay for his trials?
Well, let's do it and find out. Why are we concerned? Why are we concerned about how much money he raises off of a perp walk? Why are we concerned how much ire is cast upon the system by his sycophantic followers? If the justice system is doing its justice correctly and fairly, those of us in the political space will know, okay, yeah, that's a political problem for him. And it's a political opportunity for his opponents. That's the politics of this. But our system shouldn't be beholden, Andrea, to concerns about whether or not Donald Trump raises money and his numbers go up if the system is doing what it's supposed to do. And if he is convicted, then in my view, all of the entrapments of being a former president should be stripped away. So there is no concern about security in a jail cell, because then he's a convicted felon. He's not a former president.
Yeah, so you see now, you heard that. They're salivating at the idea of Trump being thrown in prison, right? They want to put their political opponents behind bars. And Michael Steele, who for whatever reason still calls himself a Republican, I'm not entirely sure. There's nothing conservative or Republican about this guy at all. Maybe he likes tax cuts. Okay, maybe that's the most conservative thing about him. But outside of that, I don't really see a conservative. Okay, I see a Democrat operative. I see a woke revolutionary. I see a Trump deranged fool, because that's exactly where this rant comes from, right? It comes from a place of Trump derangement, and these people are foolish, right? They're foolish in the sense that, one, these trials are not just, okay? This is not how the legal system is supposed to work, where you're weaponizing the system in order to go after your political opponents. I mean, every single last one of these cases are built off fringe legal theories that have basically never been tested before, okay? Whether that be the Bragg case, whether that be the Fannie Willis case, Letitia James, Jack Smith, all these cases, again, are a stretch. They are an overreach. These are things that would never be levied against Democrats, because Democrats are allowed to get away with this stuff, right? They're allowed to get away with it. Biden was allowed to get away with knowingly mishandling classified documents as a senator and as a vice president in order to make himself $7 to $8 million with a book deal, right? He exposed classified information to his biographer, again, as a means to make money. We know for a fact that he did that. This was established by the DOJ, but yet Biden didn't get charged because, well, he's too old and senile to stand before a jury, right? They wouldn't be able to actually tell what his intent was or be able to get him to say anything because his memory's shot, right? It's crazy. Trump is literally being punished for being cognizant, right? For not being so old that he's borderline demented like Biden. Again, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, okay? So with that being said, you have some people that can see the clear and obvious, even Trump deranged liberals like Stephen A. Smith, who has been speaking out, basically begging Democrats to stop the clear and obvious political persecution against Trump, because it is going to backfire. It is going to hurt them in the end when it comes to the election. Take a look.
He got with a porn star and tried to hide it while he was campaigning for the highest office in the land. And that's your case. It's much ado about nothing. To my liberal friends out there, all you're doing is showing that you're scared you can't beat them on the issues and the merits. That's why he keeps saying it's a political campaign against me. That's why he keeps saying they can't beat me at the election, at the polls. This is the only way they could do it. And if you don't put him in jail, and he still goes from being the presumptive GOP nominee to the official GOP nominee, and he goes to the polls, even though he was going to whine about winning and being rigged again, you have given more fodder to that argument, which means we'll never have peace in this country, because tens of millions of people see what extent the other side is willing to go through just to keep him out of office, because they can't beat him on their own merits. And they're going to say, hey, you trumped us up against him again, and we'll have no peace, when all you got to do is figure out a way to beat him on the issues. But you haven't been able to do it. What a damn shame. I was only joking when I said on First Take this morning I'm considering voting for a third party, because that would throw away my vote. But I do mean it when I say this. If I did it, which I won't, but if I did it, you deserve it. You can't beat them. Everything you do shows me you can't beat them. It's a damn shame. It really, really is. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, so Stephen A is getting dangerously close to basically losing his job, right? Because if he comes out here and he says that he's going to vote third party or vote for Trump, aka if he says he's not going to vote for Biden, his job is over, right? There will be think pieces. There will be arguments on First Take about why in the world is Stephen A not supporting Biden, right? He ain't got the cojones to come out here and say what he really wants to say. Let's hope that Stephen A actually really goes to the polls and votes third party or votes for Trump. I don't think it's going to happen, okay? But let's hope that he does. I've been hard on Stephen A. because I think that what he's doing is that he is basically begging Democrats to get their ish together so that they can actually beat Trump, right? Because he understands, wisely understands, that these political persecutions against Trump is not doing anything but helping Trump, right? They have done nothing but help Trump at this point, and there is no sign that that's going to change even with a conviction. I don't care what the polls say, right? The polls said a lot of things before Trump was indicted. They suggested that, hey, it could hurt him, but it didn't. It actually helped them. And especially when you have what clearly and obviously is a fraudulent, like the most fraudulent case against Trump. If they actually get a conviction, that will make the impact of later convictions less, okay? A lot of people say, okay, well, we've already like processed this idea that the former president has been convicted and, you know, he's still running for office or whatever. They've already processed that, okay? So it's not a shocking thing anymore, right? It won't have the impact these people think. The fact that Alvin Bragg is going first and he may get the first conviction, again, I personally think his case is extremely weak. I don't think that he's actually going to be convicted, but who knows? I mean, out there in New York, is it possible to find a jury that's not tainted, right? That's not full of anti-Trumpers? It seems to me they're having a hard time doing so.
And the first
What
one
does that
was,
mean? I mean, they're not on trial.
Well, that was the judge actually reminded them of that. But they had things on their social media posts that Donald Trump and his lawyers found troubling. So the first one,
In the category of bias.
bias, yeah, because you're wondering, you know, what are they posting, and will it go to whether or not they can be fair? So they asked about them. The first one was juror number 1. So the first one. And they bring up some social media posts to the judge. The judge wants to see them. They've screenshotted it. The judge is looking at them, and he's really confused. He says, did you give me the right piece of paper? He didn't even understand what he was looking at. So there was some questions between that, and he ended up wanting to see, they were videos. They were screenshots of videos. And one of the videos happened to be the juror number 1, had taken a video at a distance of what looked like a celebration in the streets of New York for when Trump lost in 2020. I think that was it. And it showed that she was biased, and there was some language that suggested that she might have a bias. So she was called in and interviewed by the judge, and she said she happened to take the video when it was on the Upper West Side, and she was outside parking her car, and there was people celebrating in the distance. So she thought it was a very New York moment, and she posted it. I also loved that it involved alternate side parking in New York. It all comes down to that in New York. So she was interviewed and left the room, and then we didn't have the cameras on, so we didn't have a visual of Donald Trump at this point from the overflow room that I sit in. We have closed circuit TVs, but the judge there was some back and forth between the lawyers, and then the judge actually admonished the former president because he was huffing and puffing and gesturing towards the juror. He said the judge said it was completely inappropriate, and he said, I won't tolerate it. I won't have any jurors intimidated in this courtroom. And his lawyer had to go speak to him. So that was like a moment. And the judge found in this case, in this juror, that this juror could continue. And they, wasn't immediately pulled. But
yeah, so again, you have jurors that are being selected even though they clearly and obviously have an anti-Trump, pro-Biden bias. So again, the only reason that Trump will get convicted is because it's a sham trial, which could very possibly happen. But regardless of that, I mean, Trump is up in the swing states, right? And this is what I try to tell you guys. When you examine these polls, as long as Trump is up outright beating Biden or within probably 0.4, 0.5 percentage points, that means that Trump is winning, right? Because all Trump has to do is win the swing states. He can still win even if he doesn't win the popular vote because that's how the electoral college works. Like, for example, Trump is up 4.5 in Arizona. He is up in Nevada 3.2. In Wisconsin, 0.60. In Michigan, 3.2. Now, Pennsylvania is an interesting one. Biden's up 0.1, but we have an outlier poll here of Biden being up plus 10. Okay, in what world do you believe that Biden's up plus 10 in Pennsylvania, right? So if you take out that outlier poll, Trump is probably winning, okay? Like, he has basically been winning for the most part in Pennsylvania throughout the election. So again, this is probably a state that realistically has Trump ahead. North Carolina, Trump is up 4 points. And in Georgia, Trump is up 3.8. So, I mean, at this point, Trump really is running away with it. That's why I say that the more time that passes, I predict that you're going to see Trump really start to run away, especially, again, if the conviction comes from this Alvin Bragg trial that I think everybody knows is just absolutely phony. It will lessen the impact of a later conviction in a trial or a case that people actually care about. Like, for example, when it comes to the January 6th trial, if that happens before the election, or when it comes to the RICO trial, in the trials and cases that people actually really care about, Alvin Bragg going first and getting a conviction, which is clearly based off something that's false and phony, and that's the reason why most people don't care about it. It doesn't really carry much penalty, okay, to be quite honest with you, even if he's found guilty. The fact that that is happening, right, first, again, can lessen the impact of a future conviction and make it so, hey, ultimately Trump gets a boost out of this and it doesn't really hurt him. So I personally think that this is going to backfire. I think that Democrats that are trying to have Trump thrown in jail, ultimately their Trump derangement is getting in the way of what they claim they want in regards to the ultimate goal, which is for Trump not to become president again. But again, it would be kind of funny for Trump to get convicted, but then to become president. And then now these people are going to be boohoo-whining and crying about, oh, Trump got convicted and people still voted for him, right? That's what they'll do. But let's hope that Trump doesn't get convicted, okay, because he's not a criminal. And let's hope that the American people, show out in November and vote the right way, because, again, in almost every issue, Trump is beating Biden's up. Abortion, right? Take away abortion and maybe climate change. Trump is winning across the board. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.